Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic, Naruto's Unbreakable Bonds with Tayuya and Anko. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Later. Forest Tower, Team 7's room. You're seriously not making up any of this crap? Kin asked out of curiosity after Naruto had finished telling him about his past adventures. Honestly, a lot of that stuff was pretty unbelievable. I swear on my headband, all of it is absolutely true. Tell him, Sasuke. Naruto called out towards the Uchiha with a grin. The self-proclaimed Avenger rolled his eyes in annoyance but gave an affirmative nod all the same, since it all was indeed true. Sakura then emerged at long last from the shower. Having overheard the blonde telling stories of their exploits, she also said, "Yup. All true. Holy crap," was all Karen could say as she let out a low whistle. While it was known that absolutely anything could happen while on a mission, she would never have expected that kind of stuff could happen to a fresh out of the academy team as Naruto had described them in his stories, or perhaps more specifically, that kind of stuff could happen to them and that they managed to survive it all. Yeah, we went through some rough patches, but we always found a way to squeak through. Gotta say though, if I had unlocked this bloodline earlier, then things would have definitely been a lot easier. Naruto spoke with a small chuckle, making some sparks appear from his fingertips for emphasis. The door to their suite opened, revealing the form of Anko with a fresh set of clothes for the blonde as she announced, "Yo. Got some good news for you guys, Hokage's on his way. Should be here soon." A few more teams made it too. "Oh, who made it?" Naruto asked as he accepted the clothes from his best friend, the others listening in since they too were curious about who made it. Even Sasuke, though that was mainly because he was curious about who his next opponents might be. "Well, all of your old classmates made it. A guy called Kabuto and his team made the cut too. Might Guy's team also arrived as well. By this point, we're not expecting any more teams. All the others have either been confirmed killed or disqualified," Anko explained with a slightly sadistic smile, causing the girls to shudder a bit. "Hey Sasuke, didn't that Rock Lee fella kick your just before the first exam?" Naruto asked with a cheeky grin, although deep down he knew that the Uchiha would likely wish to settle the score. If there was one thing that he and Sasuke did have in common, aside from tragic backstories, was their shared hatred of losing. "Shut up, Dobi." The Uchiha grumbled angrily. The whiskered teen then shrugged his shoulders and entered the bathroom to change his clothes. About a minute or so later, he returned wearing a black trench coat without a shirt underneath to expose his abs and chest, a pair of jeans and black combat boots. "Whoa, I'm liking the new look." Karen spoke as she used her fingers to make a picture frame while ogling the blonde's new look, most especially his abs. "Hubba hubba, I'll be your captive any day," Kin blurted out without thinking, then slapped a hand over her mouth and blushed profusely in embarrassment. Even Sakura had to admit that this was a pretty good look for Naruto, a very strong improvement over his previous outfit, that was for sure. "Thank you all for your kind input, ladies. I gotta say, I'm looking forward to testing my new powers and skills on some new opponents. Those Odo guys were pretty weak, no offense meant for you, Kin," Naruto proclaimed as he cracked his knuckles with Anko chuckling as she ruffled his hair. "You'll get your shot, Naruto-kun. Word is we'll be having some prelims soon to help cull down some extra candidates. We'll be starting soon, so get some rest while you still can." The Dango lover spoke in a grave voice, earning a nod from the whiskered teen. "Wait, prelims. Cull down," Sakura parroted in a worried voice, making Anko smirk a bit as she answered, "Relax, Pinkie Pie. It's actually pretty straightforward. One-on-one matches. All you have to do is worry about beating your opponent. Nothing to it." At this news, Sakura let out a sigh of relief, since a simple straight-up fight would definitely be much more preferable over another survival exercise like before. With that, the snake user departed since she had some other exam-related business to take care of before the prelims took place. "Huh, to think we came so far now. Sakura," Naruto asked as he started performing a few stretches and admired the freedom of movement in his new outfit. The pinkett smiled as she nodded in agreement and replied, "Yeah. Think we have a shot in making Chunin." Karen giggled as she adjusted her glasses and piped in, "It's not really a guarantee, but everyone has a fair shot at making the grade. Who knows? All of you could become Chunin, maybe none of you will. Anything can happen." But at least you'll have given it your best shot. Even if you don't make it, there will always be next time, and next time you'll be much better prepared, yeah. Naruto nodded as he spoke. Karen's right. Regardless of if we pass or fail, we'll still be Team 7. Sakura, we've had some rough spots, but I was still glad to be a part of the team. It was still a learning experience for me. At that, the pink kid smiled and was amazed at how sporting and mature the blonde was being. He had seriously grown as both a ninja and perhaps more importantly as a person. HMPH. Speak for yourselves. If you two weren't around, Kakashi would be able to dedicate more time to me and help me get even stronger, but you are both holding me back. Sasuke spoke with a grimace, his words earning frowns from everyone in the room. Sheesh, way to kill a good moment, Sasuke. You always were a major. I wish you could have received more of Makoto-san's personality. Naruto grumbled as he ran a hand through his hair, his words earning a glare from the Uchiha. What did you just say, Dobi? What was that about my mother? Sasuke demanded since he had clearly heard Naruto mention his late mother by name. The two boys glared harshly at one another for a few long moments, the atmosphere becoming more and more tense by the second, which was then broken when a knock came at the door. Karen, can you check on that please? Naruto requested, prompting the spectacled girl to give a quick, hi, and walk over to the door to answer it where a voice that was very familiar to Team 7 greeted her. Ohio, my apologies for disturbing you, young lady. I'm currently looking for Team 7, am I at the wrong room? Asked the form of Hiruzen in a kindly and polite voice. Karen shook her head and gestured inside, revealing that Team 7 were indeed occupying this room, which prompted Hiruzen to give a, thank you, to her as he stepped inside, while being accompanied by a girl with green hair and brown skin that the Konoha genin didn't recognize. Hey old man, good to see you again. Thanks for coming. Naruto greeted in a friendly manner while waving towards the Sandaime. Hiruzen visibly blanched for a few moments before shouting, Naruto. Is that you? I almost didn't recognize you. You're, much more. The whiskered teen chuckled as he cut off the Sandaime and spoke, yeah. I know. I'm not a scrawny little pipsqueak anymore. I get it. Bloodline helped beef me up. Not sure how, why, or what it can do, but I hope to find out. Anyway, we have more important business than discussing my new bod. The blonde then flexed his arm for a brief moment and then put his hands in his coat pockets while motioning towards the two extra girls he had picked up and towards Sasuke. Yes. Of course, I almost forgot. I must be getting a little senile. Right, the girls. I have already been told the basics thanks to the messenger Anko sent me. For this Karen girl, the matter is fairly simple, we can simply declare her as legally dead since her team didn't make it in the forest. Since she swore a life debt to you Naruto-kun, what you do with her is entirely your business. As for you Kin-san, I'm aware that you wish to trade information in exchange for asylum here in Konoha. I'll have Anko-san take you to the T&I department for questioning. So long as you cooperate and share what you know, you'll be safe from harm, I promise you. You'll be in good hands. The Sandaime promised, earning a thankful nod from the raven-haired girl. Unlike in Oto, the people of Konoha, or at least most of them, had a code of honor. So long as she didn't give them reason to harm her, she should be fine. The Sandaime then directed his attention towards the Uchiha with a grave expression and spoke in an even voice, Sasuke, Sakura. The one you encountered in the forest, was my former student Orochimaru, the snake Sannin. He murdered and took the place of a Kusanin to infiltrate the exams. At this news, Naruto narrowed his eyes while Karen adjusted her glasses. Kin for her part bit her lip while looking a little green in the face. She wanted to say something, but she feared that if she said something now, then she would have lost her only bargaining chip that could save her life. Sakura paled at the thought of having encountered one of the most dangerous shinobi alive, while Sasuke seemed as pensive and brooding as ever, though it seems his pride was bruised a bit less after having learned he had lost to a powerful shinobi instead of some nameless scrub, for all the good it did him. Orochimaru. But, what would he want with us? Sakura asked since it didn't make much sense for her that a Sannin, a rogue one at that, would target a team of genin like themselves. Not us. Just Sasuke. He's been marked. Naruto answered as he gestured towards the Uchiha, with Hiruzen nodding in confirmation. The Sandaime cleared his throat and began his explanation. Orochimaru was caught performing inhumane experiments here in Konoha. He was trying to uncover the secrets of immortality and of any and all bloodlines that caught his attention. He had a particular obsession with both the Senju's wood release and Uchiha's Sharingan. That mark that Sasuke now bears on his neck is Orochimaru's solution. The Sandaime spat out in disgust at the word solution. Naruto sighed as he stepped forward and took over for the Hokage. Orochimaru made what is known as the curse mark, that he brands certain individuals with. Anko, his former student, has a mark just like Sasuke's, though hers was still in the prototype stages. From what I was told about it, the mark acts as both a drug and as a parasite. He uses it to transfer his soul into the body of someone he marked, so that he can take it over and assimilate their bloodlines or any other qualities and abilities for himself. That's horrible and disgusting. Then that means, Sakura muttered but quickly lost the use of her voice as she glanced over towards her other teammate. Yeah, he wants Sasuke's Sharingan. Sorry I didn't say anything earlier, but I didn't want to worry anyone, at least not until we cleared out of the forest. Naruto explained as he crossed his arms, earning a nod of understanding from the Pinkett. As this went on, Sasuke quietly brooded to himself, making it difficult to discern how much he actually heard, or if he was even listening at all. Sakura then managed to regain her voice and asked, "Hokage-sama, is there anything you can do? There must be a way to remove it, right?" The Sandaime sighed as he answered her in a grave voice, "I'm afraid no reliable method has been found to dispel a curse mark as of yet. They're tricky little things. Even worse, the sealing arts are extremely complex and there are few true sealmasters. If we had Orochimaru's formula for the mark, that would make things significantly easier, but without that we run the risk of doing more harm than good. The best we can do for now, is to put an inhibitor on it to suppress the effects." Sakura nodded in thanks since that was better than doing nothing at all, but then Sasuke finally spoke up, "This mark, could it perhaps be useful?" At his question, everyone looked at him as though he had grown a second head, while the Sandaime narrowed his eyes. That sort of question didn't bode well at all. "Sasuke, listen to me very carefully. It is true that the curse mark may afford some benefits, but they are far too costly. As Naruto correctly put it, the mark is akin to a drug. If you use it, it may give you some measure of strength, but the more you use it, the more addicted you become, the more addicted you become, the more dependent on it you become, until finally it ends up destroying you body and soul. I expressly forbid you from using the mark for your own health and safety. Additionally, I should mention that those who rely on fake power don't get very far in life or the shinobi world. If you are caught trying to use that mark for your own benefit, I will not hesitate to have your chakras sealed and have you placed into protective custody, or even prison if you force my hand. Is that clear?" The Hokage almost snarled at the end, showing off an almost uncharacteristic show of contempt and anger. For a moment, the Uchiha grit his teeth, almost as if he wanted to say something, but instead he grudgingly shook his head, which seemed to satisfy the Sandaime for the time being. "Very good. Now then, the preliminaries will begin shortly. Team 7, report to the arena. Karen-san, Kin-san, feel free to use the television to watch the matches and cheer for your new friends." Hiruzen spoke, earning some nods from everyone. Then the green-haired girl cleared her throat rather loudly, gaining the attention of the Sandaime. "Ah, I almost forgot, forgive me Fu-san. Team 7, this is Fu, she will be joining you as an official member of your squad after the Chunin exams. She has recently transferred from Taki, so please treat her well." Hiruzen spoke, introducing the brown-skinned girl who gave a friendly wave. Naruto smiled and decided to break the ice by saying, "Nice to meet you Fu-san. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I don't remember seeing you in Taki when we were last there. How's Shibuki doing by the way?" Fu giggled as she rubbed the back of her head and answered, "Yeah, I was off on a mission during that time so I didn't hear about what happened until I got home. Shibuki-san's doing just fine, in fact he sends his warmest regards to Team 7 and to you Naruto-san. I look forward to working with you guys in the future." Sakura gave a friendly wave as well to the mint-haired Kunoichi and spoke, "It'll be nice to have you on the team. I am Sakura Haruno. Not to sound like I'm complaining of anything, but it seems unusual for a team to have more than the usual members. Standard team dynamics usually consist of 3 students and 1 sensei, not to mention we're in the Chunin exams won't our team get broken up or something? Hiruzen chuckled and decided to step in and answer, not necessarily, no. Most Chunin who work in teams tend to work with their original teammates due to existing familiarity and teamwork, however they can also choose to do certain missions solo or with other team members. Even if you become Chunin, Team 7 won't be broken up. Also, I grant that these are unusual circumstances, but some teams are granted special rights or exceptions, such as Fu joining your squad for instance. Perhaps even Karen-san may join you if she so wishes, given her life debt to Naruto-kun. Sakura nodded in understanding while the spectacled girl gave a nonchalant shrug. She wasn't really interested in becoming a kunoichi for Konoha. She was just fine being an unofficial member that was there to serve Naruto and assist him with anything he needed. Fu-san, as your first official mission of Konoha, I charge you with guarding Karen-san and Kin-san until either Naruto-kun or a woman named Anko Mitarashi comes to retrieve them. Hiruzen stated, prompting the orange-eyed girl to stamp her feet in place and salute the sandame as if to say, leave it to me. Fu then glanced over to Naruto and said to him, I look forward to talking with you more Naruto-san. By the way, it might interest you to know that my lucky number on the totem pole is 7. At that, Naruto gave her a puzzled expression as if to ask, what do you mean? As if sensing his question, Fu gave him a wink and motioned towards her stomach region. It then clicked in his mind that she was telling him that she was a Jinchuriki like himself, the Nanabi. Huh, the Nanabi Jinchuriki joining Team 7, lucky number indeed. Cool, mine is the number 9. I'm definitely looking forward to talking with you. Karen, Kin, you two behave yourselves and don't go causing trouble for our new friend. The blonde spoke, earning a pair of highs from the girls. We'll be cheering you on. Go knock 'em dead. Karen shouted as the blonde and his teammates exited the room, followed by the sandame. The three girls then turned their attention towards the television screen and used the remote to change the feed until they saw an arena where the other teams had gathered. It was certainly going to be interesting to see who was going to fight who in the coming matches. Although, they were very strongly confident that Naruto himself would be the last one standing. The preliminaries of the Chunin exams were about to begin. Well now, this may be fun. Naruto whispered to himself as he and his team arrived within the arena where the other teams had gathered. Some looking a bit worse for wear judging by the scrapes, bruises and signs of fatigue. He glanced upwards and saw the sandame and Anko watching silently from above and gave them a subtle nod, which they returned and mouthed, good luck, to the blonde. Standing at the front of the various teams was a rather sickly-looking Chunin who couldn't seem to stop coughing, which made the whiskered teen wonder why the hell he was still on duty if he was so sick. He scratched his cheek for a moment, then glanced over towards the Suna team, just as Anko had described, not a single scratch on them. To get through the forest of death, you'd either have to be unbelievably strong, or be a special kind of crazy. The girl amongst the Suna team took notice of the looks they were getting from her fellow blonde. She then smirked and walked over to him with a smirk as she asked, see anything you like handsome? Okay, she was now flirting with him. That's a new one. Naruto blushed for a moment before regaining his composure and replied, maybe. I see a lovely desert rose in front of me. Tamari, am I correct? He asked, remembering his first encounter with her and the others when Konohamaru bumped into that catsuit guy by accident. The blonde kunoichi smirked a little as she replied, yup. That's me. Nice to meet you cutie, mind if I have your name? What team are you from anyway? I don't recognize you. The whiskered teen gave a small grin as he spoke, the name's Naruto Uzumaki. We met before the exams. I think you tried flirting with my other teammate but he ignored you like the he was. Tamari raised an eyebrow for a moment as she pondered over his words, wait a second, blonde hair and whisker marks. No, it couldn't be. Holy, you're that loudmouthed kid from before. No freaking way. She spoke out in surprise, a rather common reaction after his sudden transformation. Yeah, I know. Difference is like night and day, huh? He answered with a small shrug, all while his fellow blonde eyed him up and down. Gotta say, love the new look. She spoke with a flirty wink, which kinda made Naruto blush a little again. He was used to such gestures from Anko, but he never received them from other girls before. I appreciate that. If you're interested, I could take you out for dinner later. He spoke without really thinking. When it registered in his mind what he had just said, He started to scream internally for his stupidity, until what Tamari said next threw him for a loop. I might just take you up on that. It's not often I get to relax these days, and I have had a killer craving for some good ramen. You know any good ramen places? She asked with a small smirk. Wait, that sounded like a yes, and she was craving ramen. Oh hell yes. Trying to contain his excitement, the whiskered teen answered, hey. A woman after my own heart. As a matter of fact, I know the absolute best ramen joint in Konoha, if not the Shinobi Nations. Let me know whenever you're free and I'll be more than happy to take you there. At that, the Suna Kunoichi smiled and then took a step forward and traced a lone finger down his chest and spoke in a husky voice, I'll hold you to that. Show me a good time, and I'll show you how a real Kunoichi can handle a kunai. Stay alive until then, sweetheart. Tamari then mimed a kiss towards her fellow blonde before sauntering away, leaving behind a blushing Naruto. Damn, that girl was forward. Not that it was a bad thing. That was definitely an interesting encounter. Now that he thought about it, he didn't really know much about the other villages or the shinobi and kunoichi that lived there. It might be interesting getting to know people from other villages. He then glanced over and saw the form of Ino Yamanaka, one of his old classmates and yet another Sasuke fangirl, albeit not on the same level as most, which made Ino far more tolerable. He grinned and decided to try flirting with her and seeing how she reacted. If nothing else, the reaction towards his new looks would be pretty funny. The Jinchuriki walked over towards the clan heiress and spoke politely to get her attention, good afternoon ma'am. Afternoon. What can I, Humina. Ino spoke back, but then her voice fell upon seeing Naruto's new form with her eyes widening and her mouth being left wide open. She quickly snapped out of her stupor and blushed as she spoke, hi there. Is there something I can do for you? Are you a proctor or a participant? What team are you from? I can tell you're from Konoha. Are you perhaps alone? She almost whispered out that last part in a slightly husky voice. Wow, that worked fast. Seemed like just looking at him was enough to leave girls weak in the knees. I certainly hope so. It is Ino Yamanaka, right? I was told that you had the looks of a beautiful princess. Those stories don't seem to do you any justice. To answer a few of your questions, I am indeed a participant and I'm here with my team. He answered, being sure to turn on the charm, or at least do his best to be charming, and for some reason it seemed to be working since the young mindwalker had stars in her eyes. Oh ho ho. Stop it. You're gonna make me melt into a puddle of goo with that kind of praise. She gushed while placing her hands on her cheeks to try and hide her blushing face. Ino. Who are you talking to? Choji asked as he and Shikamaru approached, the Akamaiki munching on a seemingly endless supply of chips from the bag he was holding. Ino gained an annoyed look as she stamped her foot and growled out, guys. This blonde Adonis is clearly flirting with me and is showering me with praises and, come to think of it, I don't think I asked for his name. The Yamanaka muttered upon realizing her blunder, so she clapped her hands together and gave a bright smile as she asked her fellow blonde, sorry handsome, but what was your name again? Naruto chuckled and replied in a slightly snarky voice, almost hurts that you don't recognize me guys. Though for your convenience, Naruto Uzumaki. At your service. The sounds of glass shattering rang out seemingly out of nowhere as Choji accidentally inhaled some of his chips, while Shikamaru jaw dropped and Ino stood frozen like a deer in the headlights. The Yamanaka heiress was the first to regain her senses as she snarled, Naruto you bastard. Don't go putting on a henge and messing with me. She then sent a kick to his midsection, her foot landing hard against his abs, then she quickly regretted this as she felt as if she had just kicked a wall of concrete. Ow, ow. Ow, ow, she muttered while hopping up and down on one foot while clutching her injured foot and attempting to soothe the pain. Naruto scratched his cheek with a lone finger and replied, it's not a henge. This is really me. Can someone help Choji? He's kinda turning blue. Shikamaru grabbed his best friend by the waist and started performing the Heimlich maneuver to help clear Choji's airway while muttering about, damn troublesome blondes. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and spoke, sorry about that Ino. I mainly wanted to see your reaction to the new look. I'll make it up to you, maybe over dinner. The blonde mindwalker glared at the whiskered teen and replied in a slightly irritated voice, I'll hold you to that since I expect compensation for this. You better not skip out on me either or I'll never forgive you. At that, Naruto simply nodded and gave a two-fingered salute before walking off, leaving behind the Ino Shika Cho team, although Ino couldn't but stare into his back as he walked away. Damn, I gotta admit those abs were rock hard, very nice. She thought to herself with a small blush and then gave a quiet giggle. As Naruto walked away, he spotted the form of Rock Lee and his team, with the taijutsu user himself performing push-ups, using only his pinky finger. Wow, gotta admire his dedication. He was kind of odd, but he seemed like a very earnest sort of fellow. This would definitely be a good chance to talk with him and his team a bit to see what made them tick. He approached the thickly eyebrowed teen and greeted, "Hello there, Rock Lee-san." At his greeting, Lee hopped to his feet and gave an enthusiastic bow towards the blonde. "Greetings, stranger. My apologies, but it seems you have me at a disadvantage. Might I have your name?" Lee asked, and for a moment the whiskered teen considered giving it, but smirked to himself and decided to hold off on that part for a bit. Also, was he really that hard to recognize now? Almost no one seemed to recognize him after his changes. Then again, he could understand the confusion with his new build and clothes that likely helped throw people off. The blonde Uzumaki cleared his throat and spoke while ignoring the taijutsu user's question, "I saw your little spar with Sasuke Uchiha. Gotta say, I felt kinda disappointed when the finale was interrupted. I would have loved to see how that would have ended." Lee couldn't help but frown a bit in disappointment since he too felt that match came to a premature close. "Ah, you saw that, huh? Although to be fair, I may have gotten carried away at that time. Even so, it was an interesting experience. Allow me to ask you, stranger-san, which do you believe to be better? Hard work or talent?" Naruto hummed in thought, remembering the marks he had seen on Lee's hands that were hidden beneath those bandages and how easily he had mopped the floor with the Uchiha before answering, "Having talent is all well and good, but talent alone can only carry you so far. Now, if you take that talent and polish and nurture it with hard work and training, that'd be a different story. Of course, people might also have talents or skills they themselves didn't know that they had to begin with. To put a long story short, talent is meaningless without hard work. So therefore I think hard work is better, but of course having some talent doesn't hurt either." When the blonde had finished giving his answer, Lee gave an approving thumbs up and flashed a grin that sparkled. "I wholeheartedly agree with you, stranger-san. I look forward to a potential match with you." Lee spoke enthusiastically, making the blonde chuckle a little bit. He then saw both of Lee's teammates walk up. The girl he remembered being called Tenten and their third teammate Neji was of the Hyuga clan, as evidenced by the unique eye color related to his clan. The bun-haired girl gave a friendly wave and spoke, "Hey there. We heard you guys talking. I was kinda curious, what's your take on women being in the shinobi corps?" Her question caught the Uzumaki off guard since he wasn't expecting it and could only give a confused, "Huh." Upon seeing his obvious confusion, she continued to speak and clarified, "There are some people who think that kunoichi are only good for seduction missions, as if they're cheap prostitutes to be used and pimped out. I want to prove that kunoichi can be just as capable as anyone else, just like the Sanin Tsunade." Naruto gave an understanding nod, getting a much better picture about her question and replied, "I'm not really knowledgeable about seduction missions. However, I don't really see any distinction between men versus women. Some are more capable than others, there's some good, some bad, and some downright awful across the whole damn board. Though to me, what really matters is competence, loyalty, and dedication, regardless if one's a shinobi or kunoichi." Upon hearing his answer, the brown-haired girl smiled warmly as she spoke, "That's a pretty open-minded viewpoint, one I can definitely get behind." The blonde simply shrugged his shoulders and gave a two-fingered salute. Tenten then asked, "So what was your name again?" At that, the blonde gave a sly grin and replied, "Naruto Uzumaki." "Nice to meet you." Nice to meet you too, Naru." The bun-haired girl spoke but then fell silent as she processed what he had just said. Both she and Lee stared at the blonde with their mouths agape and then let out a loud, "EHHHHHH." Naruto stuck his tongue out at them and then quickly walked away before they could question him about his new physique. That was Naruto. From Kakashi's team. He looks way different than earlier. Neji questioned in surprise, raising an eyebrow since he wondered how someone could change so much so quickly. Amazing. Naruto-san tapped into his flames of youth and quickly built up his body to new levels. I must train 10 times harder if I'm to catch up to him. Rock Lee shouted and then resumed his earlier push-ups using only his pinky finger. I don't think that's how it works, Lee. No amount of training can beef up someone so quickly. Tenten tried to explain, but her bushy-browed teammate paid no attention to her as he continued his training. Meanwhile, Naruto chuckled to himself as he decided to try and find Hinata's team. He kinda wanted to see if he could get a reaction out of the stoic Shino Aburame. However, this plan came to a halt when the Sandaime appeared in front of the crowd with the sickly-looking Chunin from earlier that was almost constantly coughing. Attention all participants, we are going to have a series of preliminary battles to further cull down the numbers of potential candidates. Many nobles, merchants, and other important dignitaries will be in attendance during the finals, and we wish to provide only the best of the best. The Sandaime announced, earning some murmurs from the remaining candidates. Naruto narrowed his eyes a bit. From what he could guess, the Chunin exams wasn't just a chance for genin like themselves to gain a promotion to Chunin. The exams also had military and political implications. This was a chance to show off the best ninjas to potential clients for more business. If the clients see capable shinobi, then they would be far more likely to do business with their respective village. Still, this didn't really bother the blonde. All he had to focus on was winning and maybe wow the crowd with his new power, if he could get a proper handle on it. The sickly Chunin stepped forward and announced, I'm Hayate, and I'll be the proctor and referee for the preliminary matches. Rules are simple, anything goes except outside interference. First one to forfeit, get knocked out, or on the off chance die, is eliminated. If I declare a match is over, then it's over, full stop. Matchups will be randomized and displayed on the large monitor up there. If you want to back out before we start, now's the time. Any questions? Once the Chunin had finished speaking, he started a rather violent coughing fit. Naruto gave a small look of concern and spoke, this isn't related to the prelims, but, you okay? In response, Hayate casually waved off the blonde in dismissal, stating that he would be fine in a bit. Meanwhile, in the background, a spectacled shinobi was observing the blonde Uzumaki. Huh, very strange. It seems Naruto has a new physique. I certainly didn't sense the presence of a henge when we last met just before the first exam. Bah, I'll have to look into that later. Gosu and his team failed to report in about Sasuke-kun. Probably got themselves killed, the useless imbeciles. I'll have to stay and observe everything myself. Still, this could be interesting, so long as I don't tip my hand too much. The silver-haired shinobi thought to himself quietly, a small glint appearing on his glasses. His master Orochimaru was eagerly awaiting a report about the Uchiha's curse mark, and since their Odo team failed, it would be up to himself to observe the Uchiha. Even so, Kabuto couldn't help but keep glancing at the Uzumaki in curiosity and wondered if he too had unlocked some form of new power. After a few moments of silence, no one bothered to forfeit, earning a nod from the sickly Chunin who spoke, all right then, no takers. First matchup will be, he left the sentence hanging and pointed towards the large monitor as a pair of names randomly flashed across the screen for a few seconds, until the names, Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Ikato, appeared. Yeesh, Sasuke right off the bat huh? And the mark hasn't been sealed yet. Naruto whispered to himself and then gave a concerned look towards the Sandaime who had his hands clasped behind his back with a steely gaze as he gave a glare towards the Uchiha in question. Hiruzen then took notice of the Uzumaki, and as if sensing his concerns, the aged Hokage gave a reassuring smile as if to say, it'll be fine. The whiskered teen nodded in understanding, but it still made him feel uneasy. Everyone except the selected combatants, please head to the observation areas above. The Hokage announced before vanishing in a swirl of leaves before reappearing again on one side of the viewing area above. Everyone else took the stairs. As Naruto and Sakura headed up, they found the forms of the team's respective senseis had arrived, including their own who was actually on time for once. Hey Kakashi. Been a while. Naruto greeted in a friendly tone since they hadn't seen him since the exams began. The silver-haired Jonin gave an eye smile as he replied, I suppose it has. My, Naruto-kun. I was informed that you had hit a growth spurt, but I wasn't expecting such a sudden change. It is kind of difficult to even recognize you in comparison to your previous form. The blonde rubbed the back of his head a bit since he couldn't really deny that. As many people had pointed out, he was pretty scrawny before his transformation. Sakura cleared her throat and then spoke, "Sensei, were you also told about Sasuke?" The copy ninja raised an eyebrow, noting that the pinkett didn't say, "Kun," as she usually did when referring towards the Uchiha. He decided not to comment on it and instead replied in a serious voice, "Yeah. I was already informed of the situation. I have clear instructions from the Hokage to take Sasuke away as soon as possible so that the inhibitor seal can be placed on his curse mark. Unfortunately, that's going to have to wait until after this match." The Jonin bemused at the end with a slightly frustrated tone, knowing that this had to be resolved and quickly before either Orochimaru's influence got into Sasuke, or perhaps worse yet, the Uchiha gets a taste for the power the curse mark can provide and would want more. Both the Uzumaki and Haruno became silent as they stood next to the railing and observed the match. Although for the former, he quickly lost interest as he focused chakra into his fingers, making some sparks appear for a few moments. He sighed to himself, wishing he knew how to use this damn bloodline. So far, it granted him power over electricity and even allowed him to perform a technique similar to the Hiraishin, but how did it freaking work? He looked back during his fight with Haku, who had a really amazing bloodline. He had to admit, there was only two reasons why he managed to win that fight. Firstly, Haku wasn't aiming to kill. If the ice user's goal was to kill him and Sasuke, then they would have easily died 1,000 times over given Haku's skill with his bloodline. Secondly, he had accidentally tapped into the power of the Kyuubi, which quickly turned the tide and overwhelmed Haku. While the Kyuubi's chakra was a potent and valuable weapon in a pinch, he didn't want to become reliant on it and use it as a crutch. He wished he had mastery of his abilities like Haku did. The things the ice user could do was pretty incredible, like that ice mirror technique that had him and Sasuke on the ropes the whole. "Naruto, your fingers." Sakura spoke, interrupting his musing as he glanced at her and then at his fingers, which were now covered in a layer of ice and frost. Growing curious, the blonde slowly clenched his fist and then relaxed it as a small ice figurine of Haku and Zabuza appeared in his now open palm, all the while both Kakashi and Sakura looked at this display with amazement in their eyes. "Holy, I wasn't told that your bloodline was ice release." Kakashi spoke as he gently picked up and inspected the little figurine, admiring the superb and lifelike detailing. "But, it was like lightning earlier," Sakura commented as she blinked her eyes several times. How the hell did Naruto jump from making lightning appear with a snap of his fingers to making little ice sculptures with ease? "Weird, I was just thinking about Haku and his ice jutsu," Naruto muttered to himself, his bloodline revealing itself to be more amazing and mysterious than he initially realized if it also granted him control over ice and lightning. But did it stop there? Just what else could it do? Before he could ponder on it further, he heard a shout of, "Lion's Barrage," and saw the Uchiha take down his opponent, though given the bored expressions of the other spectators it didn't seem like he missed that much with this fight. Naruto glanced at the Uchiha and saw a series of black markings receding into the spot where his curse mark was. Either the Uchiha had tapped into its power or it attempted to influence him in the heat of the match, or both. He couldn't say since he wasn't paying attention and didn't wish to make any false accusations. "I think that's my cue," Kakashi announced as he vanished in a blur of motion then reappeared next to the Uchiha. The copy ninja seemed to be whispering something to the self-proclaimed avenger, which put a sour look on the Uchiha's face. The Jonin then placed his hand on Sasuke's shoulder and the two vanished from sight. Both remaining members of Team 7 breathed a sigh of relief since that particular situation seemed to be handled for the time being. Naruto then noticed that the Hokage, Anko and Hayate seemed to be quietly conversing with one another. Their conversation ended with the sickly Chunin giving a thumbs up before both Anko and the Hokage retreated back to their own viewing platform. Hayate coughed a few times then announced, "We'll next be having a special battle royale match. There will be 5 random participants, and the last one standing will be declared the victor." The other participants quietly murmured amongst themselves, undoubtedly wondering who would be picked. Some commented that this was likely a means to also speed up the process of elimination, not that they really minded. After a few moments, 5 names appeared on the large monitor. Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Choji Akamaiki, Kabuto Yakushi. "Looks like I'm up," Naruto commented as he cracked his knuckles and leapt over the railing, softly landing in the arena. He glanced towards his teammate Sakura, who gave him an encouraging smile. Then he looked towards both the Sandaime and Anko, who were also quietly supporting him. The snake mistress then blew a kiss in his direction, making him blush a little bit. Yahoo! Finally! It's our time to shine, Akamaru. Let's show these chumps what makes a real alpha, shouted the familiar voice of Kiba, with his canine partner giving a bark of agreement as they also entered the arena, followed by their teammate Hinata, who was currently staring at her blonde crush, her face turning red in color. Choji then entered with a look of determination on his face, no doubt due to the fact his sensei likely promised him food if he did a good job. Finally, Kabuto entered with a timid expression on his face, but Naruto could see that the spectacled shinobi was constantly scanning the area and opposition. No doubt he was likely trying to hide his skills. Rules are the same as a standard match, and as previously stated, last man standing wins. Any questions? Hayate asked while crossing his arms and taking a few steps back just to be safe. Yeah, where's the Dobi Naruto? Why's that guy standing in his place? Are stand-ins even allowed? The Inuzuka asked while pointing towards the blonde figure who was actually the Uzumaki himself, who had a slightly irritated expression on his face. Really? Who the hell else could he be? The Raikudo Sennin. Kiba. Dude, that is Naruto. Choji spoke up to answer the dog boy's question. Nah, there's no way that could be Naruto. The Naruto we all know is some wimpy little punk that couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. The Inuzuka scoffed with a mocking grin on his face. Naruto scowled deeply and then spoke. Oi, Proctor-san. Hurry up and start the match. I wanna kick that dummy's teeth in. In response to the Uzumaki's request, the Chunin nodded his head and shouted, Hajime. As soon as the match was called to start, the blonde Uzumaki disappeared in a flash of golden light, then reappeared in front of the Inuzuka and swiftly kicked Kiba square in the mouth, sending him flying back. A yellow flash. Almost everyone shouted in awe at the display of the legendary technique. Most everyone present had heard stories of the Yondaime Hokage's infamous Hiraishin technique, and now some of them were seeing it with their own eyes once again. No mistaking it. That was definitely the Hiraishin, but unlike Minato, Naruto doesn't seem to require a marker. Hiruzen muttered quietly to himself as he watched the match unfold. Partial expansion jutsu, human boulder. Choji shouted as he expanded his midsection and then began to rapidly spin much like a ball and was headed in Naruto's direction since he recognized the blonde as the most immediate threat. Naruto smirked as he saw the Akamaiki coming and spoke to himself, okay Haku. This one's for you. Sacred Art. Ice Age. He shouted at the end and slammed his open palm on the floor, causing ice to appear on the floor of the arena. This caused the Akamaiki to speed up even faster as he rolled towards the Uzumaki, who then grinned and leapt up, then delivered a swift kick to Choji's round form. The impact was enough to send the chip lover towards the wall at high speed, and then he bounced off and rocketed towards the opposite wall. Help! I can't stop! Choji shouted as he helplessly bounced from wall to wall like a human pinball, the lack of traction making it impossible to control himself. The Akamaiki wanted to disengage the jutsu but knew that if he did so at this speed, he'd be flattened on impact and be turned into a pancake. At the same time, he was starting to get sick from the constant spinning, which meant he was in a no-win situation. Hey Choji. Say, uncle, and I'll help stop ya. Naruto offered as he watched his former classmate bounce around. He almost felt a little bad for the Akamaiki right now. You're wide open, shouted Kiba as he appeared behind the blonde, attempting to take down the Uzumaki, but before he could attack Naruto, the dog boy was struck in his stomach by Hinata as she landed an open palm strike against Kiba's stomach, sending the Inuzuka flying a few feet away, and by a stroke of bad luck, the Inuzuka was struck again by an out-of-control Choji, which sent the self-proclaimed alpha falling face first into the icy floor. I'll back you up Naruto-kun, Hinata announced as she took on her clan's signature gentle fist stance, her Byakugan activated as she stared ahead in her teammate's direction. Hinata, what the hell? We're teammates. Aren't you supposed to be on my side? Kiba shouted angrily at the fact that his own teammate had just attacked him. Sorry Kiba, but I refuse to fight Naruto-kun. That aside, I wish to take revenge for some crass commentary you made about me and Kurenai-sensei behind our backs when you thought we couldn't hear you. Hinata spoke in an uncharacteristic tone of anger, her words sending a chill down the dog boy's spine as he glanced up towards the observation area where their sensei was giving him a menacing look, as if she were silently promising, "I'll get you later." Naruto smirked and spoke to his new partner, "Appreciate the assist." "Say, where's the pup?" he questioned at the end since Akamaru could usually be seen riding around inside of Kiba's hoodie. So where was his canine partner now? "On the left, Naruto-kun," Hinata shouted, prompting the blonde to look towards his left and see a second Kiba charging towards them. Undoubtedly it was Akamaru transformed to look like his human counterpart. The blonde narrowed his eyes, and then he caught a glimpse of something inside his mind. He wasn't sure what it was, but something in the back of his mind was telling him to act quickly, and just like that, a plan formed in his mind. "Offers still open, Choji," Naruto called out as the Akamaiki was still randomly bouncing around, and in response the human bowling ball finally cried out, "Uncle! Uncle! Make me stop and I'll forfeit the match already. Please." The Jinchuriki grinned and shouted, "No problem. Disengage your jutsu on my signal." He then glanced towards the transformed Akamaru who let out a ferocious bark before performing the "fang over fang" technique. The blonde raised his arms into a defensive stance and waited patiently as the transformed canine rapidly approached him. Then at the last second, Naruto grabbed Hinata by the waist and replaced the both of them with Choji. Akamaru then impacted against Choji, causing the transformed canine to bounce off the chip lover with a confused bark while the Akamaiki started rolling in a new direction. "Now Choji!" Naruto called out and then let out a blast of wind from his mouth, causing a large snow bank to form around the area where Choji was headed. The Akamaiki disengaged the jutsu and flew through the air until he fell into the soft snow that cushioned his fall. "P. Proctor, I forfeit." The chip lover called out weakly, and then a loud vomiting and retching noise could be heard that made everyone present cringe in disgust. In the stands, Asuma felt rather bad for his student, but was proud that he made a good effort. He'd have to treat Choji to some barbecue later as a reward. "All right, you stay put until the match is over. Everyone else is free to continue," Hayate announced, prompting the other participants to shout a quick, "Hi," in understanding. Naruto turned towards the form of Kabuto who had remained on the sidelines this whole time, with the former noticing a little smirk on the silver-haired shinobi's face. It kind of ticked the blonde off a bit since he hated smug-looking people. "Yo, Hinata, I'll let you handle Kiba and Akamaru. I'll take on Kabuto," Naruto announced with his hands in his pockets. "Of course Naruto-kun. Leave everything to me," Hinata spoke, silently promising that she wouldn't let her teammates get past her, no matter what. For years now, a great burden had been forced on her since she was the heiress of her clan. A small part of her also felt guilty for the death of her late uncle, even in spite of knowing that what happened was out of her control. Even so, she didn't wish to be a helpless weakling. If her teammate so much as made a move against Naruto, she would be sure to aim for some very painful pressure points on Kiba's body. Naruto walked in the direction of the spectacled shinobi and spoke, "Yo, you enjoying the show or something? You seemed pretty comfy in the background." Kabuto chuckled and adjusted his glasses as he replied, "I guess you could say that. I'm fairly used to fading away into the background. It's not often I get to take the center stage. On another note, I am quite impressed by your ice release. I had no idea you had relations with the Yuki clan." Naruto shrugged his shoulders and replied, "I don't know anything about that. At any rate, let's see what you're really made of, Kabuto-san. I've been wondering, did you fail 7 times in a row because you majorly? Or did you fail 7 times because you were waiting and biding your time for something?" The silver-haired shinobi smirked as a glare from his glasses hid his eyes for a brief moment as he answered, "I'll leave that part to your imagination." The blonde smirked back and spoke, "I was kinda expecting an answer like that." "Ah well, let's go," the blonde spoke quietly at the end as he grabbed his trenchcoat and then threw it off, exposing his upper body and the golden dragon tattoo on his back. "Whoa, since when did Naruto get a freaking tattoo?" Ino Yamanaka shouted from above, her face turning red at getting a full view of her fellow blonde's muscular form. "No idea, but that's a pretty cool looking tattoo," Shikamaru commented, feeling a sense of awe from seeing the golden dragon. Kabuto gave a haughty grin as a green glow enveloped one of his hands, waiting for the blonde to make the first move. Naruto then snapped his fingers, causing numerous mirrors of ice to appear surrounding the silver-haired shinobi who wondered what the blonde was up to. The Jinchuriki mentally thanked Haku for the inspiration and then spoke, "Divine art, laser circus array." The blonde's form was then enveloped in a golden energy and then vanished as the sound of thunder filled the arena as a lightning bolt sped towards the first mirror within reach. "Shit!" Kabuto shouted upon realizing what his opponent was about to pull. He quickly dashed forward hoping to escape, but it was too late as the lightning began bounce to end from the different mirrors creating a net of golden electricity that cut off the spectacled ninja as he found himself caught in one of the beams that delivered an immensely powerful electric shock, making him scream in pain, his body going rigid as it tensed up, leaving him unable to move. The array of lightning came to a stop as Naruto reappeared a short distance away as he stumbled a bit, as if he were dizzy. "Whoa. Gotta refine that one a bit," he mumbled to himself as he tried to clear his vision. Behind him Kabuto growled a bit, his body covered in burns as he focused his chakra in order to perform his regeneration technique. The pain quickly numbed as he recovered and then he leapt in the blonde's direction with a chakra scalpel at the ready. "Shouldn't leave yourself open," Kabuto muttered, and then he saw the tattoo on Naruto's back, and all of a sudden something flashed within the spy's mind as an almost forgotten memory appeared. Flashback. Nono Yakushi's orphanage. It was late at night in the orphanage and a young Kabuto woke up feeling thirsty. After acquiring a drink of water to quench his thirst, he was on his way back to his room, until he noticed a door was left slightly cracked open and candle light was coming from inside. Growing curious, he looked inside and saw the form of the matron, Nono herself, kneeling in front of a small shrine and tapestry that showed a fearsome golden dragon. The nun quietly prayed, her voice too low for him to hear. His curiosity getting the better of him, the young boy entered inside, his small footsteps making the floorboards creak, alerting his mother figure to his presence. She slowly turned around and greeted him with a warm smile before speaking, "Ah. Kabuto-kun, you're up late. Come, sit with me. We can pray together if you like." The spectacled child stared for a few moments before glancing up towards the tapestry, a small chill running down his spine as he felt as if the dragon emblazoned on it was staring into his soul. "Who's that you're praying to?" The nun answered him in a warm and soft voice, "This is Koiru. An old friend of mine once told me many stories about him. It is said that Koryu often goes into periods of hibernation, awaiting the day when humankind needs him most so he can bring happiness and miracles to good people, and bring misery and destruction to those with evil in their hearts." The white-haired boy gave a skeptical look and replied, "That sounds silly. Even in the shinobi world, dragons are a thing of myth. Why pray to a thing like that anyway?" Nono giggled at him for a brief moment then explained, "Perhaps a bit, but I think it is better to believe in something than nothing at all. Without faith or belief in something better, there is no hope. That aside, do you really need to see something for it to be real? Maybe not, but it sounds too good to be true for a dragon to magically appear and fix all the world's problems. Sounds almost like a fairy tale." Kabuto responded. He then yawned tiredly and excused himself to return back to bed, leaving behind his mother figure to frown slightly. As he walked out of the room he thought he heard her say something like, "I pray you don't go down a dark path when you're older." He turned to her briefly for a moment then shrugged it off, believing that he was hearing things, and continued on to his bedroom. End flashback. Time seemed to slow down as Kabuto snapped himself out of that memory and thought bitterly, miracles. Happiness. Hope. There's no such things. His chakra scalpel almost seemed to hum as he closed the distance on his target and slashed at the blonde. However, Naruto pivoted to the side, avoiding the blade of chakra with ease and then smirked. "Shouldn't let yourself get distracted." Naruto spoke as a sphere of chakra quickly appeared in his open palm, a technique that the Jonin in the audience immediately recognized on sight. The Rasengan, a technique developed by the Yondaime himself. "Shit, I lost focus when that memory appeared." Kabuto thought to himself and cursed himself for his careless mistake. Naruto then slammed the sphere into Kabuto's gut and shouted, "Arctic Rasengan." The Rasengan hit its mark as it connected with the spectacled shinobi's abdomen. Upon impact the sphere expanded as countless tiny shards of ice seemed to swirl around Kabuto, trapping him inside a mini blizzard that turned pink in color as the icicles sliced his body to pieces. When the jutsu ended, Kabuto was barely even standing as his blood seemed to drip from everywhere. Countless cuts littered his body and his clothes seemed to only be held together by a few threads. Finally, he fell limply to the ground with a wet splat. Yeesh. If that guy isn't dead, I betcha he's wishing that he is. Kankuro muttered with his arms crossed, his sister nodding in agreement while Gaara looked on with a small gleam of interest in his eye. That guy, Naruto Uzumaki. He's different from before. Interesting. Perhaps he may yet prove to be a more worthy opponent to help prove my existence. The sand user thought to himself, his lips twitching into a ghost of a smirk as he seemed to relish the thought of crushing someone so powerful. He then felt something touch his mind, a feeling he was quite familiar with as a voice spoke in his mind, "Oi, Gaara, don't fight that guy no matter what." Wait, what? That was not a phrase the crimson-haired shinobi had ever heard from his mother. He wanted to question the voice in his mind, but it quickly retreated before he had a chance to question why. Was that actual fear he heard from the voice in his mind? Naruto Uzumaki, Gaara muttered quietly, it would seem there was far more to that person than he initially believed. How very curious. Meanwhile, some of the Jonin were gossiping with each other over what just happened. Sheesh, not only did Naruto use the Rasengan, he added an element to it with a rather nasty effect. Asuma spoke while taking a drag from his cigarette, his students Shikamaru and Ino looking up at him quizzically. The Rasengan. I've never heard of that jutsu. Ino muttered as she glanced down at the bleeding form of Kabuto, it would be almost a miracle if he managed to survive his injuries. It's an original jutsu that was developed by the Yondaime Hokage, my sensei. Spoke the form of Kakashi who appeared out of seemingly thin air, shocking the chain smoker's students who were startled by his sudden reappearance. Wah, when did you get back? What happened to Sasuke? And when did you teach something like that to Naruto? Ino asked in a rapid-fire manner, earning a small eye smile from the copy ninja. Oh, just a minute or so ago. I had to take Sasuke away for special treatment for a prior injury that was bothering him. Also, it was back during our time in Snow Country when we encountered enemy ninja. I figured it would be prudent to teach Naruto a more offensive technique, so I showed him how to use the Rasengan. Still, I have to commend him for combining it with an element like that. That icy shrapnel effect can be quite devastating. Kakashi explained, his voice containing obvious pride for his student. Below in the arena, Hayate called out, "Time out. Medics, retrieve candidates Kabuto Yakushi and Kiba Inuzuka immediately. Candidate Choji, you are now cleared to leave the arena at this time." As medics appeared in puffs of smoke carrying stretchers to transport the fallen shinobi. Choji obviously had the least serious injuries, so he was free to head back to the observation area if he wished to stay and watch. In the background, Naruto raised an eyebrow and glanced over in Kiba's direction and noticed that he seemed to be clutching his family jewels and seemed to be in a lot of pain while Hinata gave a cheerful smile, the kind that held not so subtle undertones of sadistic satisfaction on her face. Wow, the blonde Uzumaki kinda wished he could have watched that fight. Akamaru dutifully followed after his partner as the medics carried the dog boy away, followed by the still bleeding form of Kabuto, though for some reason, Naruto felt as if the silver-haired ninja was glaring at him despite having already fallen unconscious. Weird. Maybe it was his imagination. Still, it was down to him and Hinata now. While he was appreciative of the backup before, the situation had changed now. Okay. The injured have been cleared out, candidates are free to continue fighting or forfeit. Hayate announced and then promptly coughed a few times. Hinata had a conflicted look on her face, showing that she was considering forfeiting the match which didn't go unnoticed by her crush. The blonde felt something boiling in him as he pointed an accusatory finger at the heiress and spoke in an almost angry, "Hinata, don't you dare." This gained the Hyuga's attention as she suddenly gained a deer in the headlights type of expression. She stood there stunned for a moment but quickly snapped herself out of it as she replied, Sorry Naruto-kun, but I don't want to fight you. You just what? Wanna quit halfway before you even give yourself a chance? Screw that and screw you. If you forfeit, I'll never forgive you." The Uzumaki shouted as a golden aura seemed to flicker around him but quickly faded before anyone could acknowledge that it was even there. The heiress seemed surprised by Naruto's sudden change in attitude, but he was right. She had told herself that she was going to forfeit so that Naruto could advance and so they wouldn't have to fight, but really she was just opting out because of her own weakness and insecurities. She had always been in the background, she had watched him on many occasions, but never acted on her feelings. She could have done so many things to help him in the past, she could have even just been someone to listen to him and let him vent out his frustrations, but again she would make an excuse and avoid him. That was always her problem, she often ran from whatever was bothering her instead of facing it. Naruto-kun, I am sorry, I suppose that by attempting to forfeit, I was also insulting you and putting myself down. Hinata spoke, her face becoming more stern as she clenched her fists, her eyes burning fiercely with newfound determination. Whoa, is that really my student? Kurenai asked herself since she had never seen Hinata make a face like that, it was almost as if she were a different person now. Somehow or another, Naruto had lit a fire inside of the Hyuga heiress and it was quickly becoming a raging inferno. Naruto grinned as he cracked his knuckles and replied, damn straight. Come at me with everything you've got, Hinata. Don't hold back against me. All your strength, all your bottled up feelings, unleash it all and try to beat me. I'll take it all. Tears quickly flowed down Hinata's cheeks as she grit her teeth as emotions that she had long suppressed suddenly exploded inside her heart. For her, this was no longer a Chunin exam match, this was a chance to finally let out all of her feelings and Naruto was ready and willing to take the full force of her hidden fury and frustrations. With a war cry, Hinata tore off her oversized coat, exposing her upper body that was covered by a mesh armor much like Anko wears, and then she charged at the blonde with her Byakugan activating. Naruto! She screeched out as the Uzumaki charged towards her as well. Then the two collided as they slammed their shoulders together, pushing hard against one another. The atmosphere suddenly became so intense that everyone came to one singular conclusion: the Chunin exams had only just begun. Meanwhile, undisclosed location. So we are in agreement then. Spoke a female voice as a group of people murmured contentedly at the new arrangements, while a certain figure wearing a black cloak with red clouds watched silently. For many years, the major shinobi nations held the greatest power in the shinobi world, which often left the minor nations at their mercy, resulting in them often getting caught in the crossfire of the shinobi wars, which only left them three options to survive: train their forces to the point they can match numerically superior forces, bend the need to a greater power for protection, or form an alliance with other minor villages for mutual protection. Today, the third had been achieved as four minor nations were ready to make an official alliance. The nations of Kusa, Star, Keys, and Demons had all formed a pact together. Kusa and Star would provide their shinobi for military purposes. Keys would use their forces for gathering intelligence and information, and Demon Country would provide other necessary materials and the gifts of their priestess who was also their representative. Excellent. Now we must decide on our first course of action. Although we have agreed to this alliance, it is still in its infancy. I think it would be prudent to ally with a major nation until we can act more autonomously. Spoke the representative from Kusa, a mysterious woman with silver hair named Ryazetsu. The others nodded in agreement. The only question was, which nation should they ally with until they gathered their strength? The representative of Key Country, a woman known as Hinari, suddenly piped in. According to our most recent intelligence, Suna and Oto have been gathering their forces. We believe that they may be planning to assault Konoha at some point during the Chunin exams. However, it should be noted that Konoha has recently nurtured strong ties to other villages. The leaders of Wave, Snow, and Taki have all recently visited the Hokage personally and are said to have offered extremely generous gifts of thanks. These nations all have one thing in common: they were all aided by Konoha's newest carnation of Team 7. Consisting of Kakashi Hatake and his students Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki. Additionally, in each instance, it has been consistently reported that Naruto Uzumaki is the driving force behind all of these happenings. Who is this, Naruto Uzumaki? Shion, the priestess of Demon Country, asked, with the other village representatives sharing in her curiosity. Hinari cleared her throat and reported, some parts of his file are surprisingly well classified. On public record, he had an unremarkable time in the Konoha Academy where he failed 3 consecutive years, until unexpectedly being rewarded with a shinobi headband. Since then, he has accomplished far more in his short tenure as a genin than most shinobi ever accomplish in their entire careers. It is my personal opinion that such an individual should be watched closely. Shion hummed slightly in thought, and then her eyes seemed to glow as she received a vision of the future. She then smiled and spoke, I strongly advise we should consider making an ally of Konoha. The representative of Star, a man named Akahoshi, gave a small sneer and spoke, Why Konoha? Sure, it is said they're the strongest village, but it's also said they've been in decline in recent years. The priestess then answered in a cryptic manner, I'm afraid I am not permitted to say too much, but I will say that a great turning point in history will come from Konoha. If we do not take care, we will be cast aside and blown away by the storm. Konan-san, come, we must make for Konoha, we have business to attend to there. In the background, a woman with distinctive blue hair and an origami flower nodded as she quietly followed her charge out of the meeting chamber. She had initially been hired to act as a bodyguard for the priestess, a somewhat boring job, but she appreciated the quiet since it helped her get away from the more unstable members of Akatsuki. While she didn't fully understand Shion's ability to see into the future, there was no doubting its accuracy. While she wouldn't question her charge, she couldn't help but wonder, what business did they have in Konoha anyway? That's it for part 2 of Naruto with Tayuya and Anko. If you're enjoying this alternate timeline, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Naruto What If fanfics. Comment below, should they face Konoha next, or a new enemy from outside the village? See you in part 3.